The sun had just started to bleed into the desert when I pulled up to Lonely Mesa Gas and Trading Post. The place looked like it had been forgotten by the world, a squat, dust-choked structure with flickering signage and empty pumps. Above it all, a red neon coyote buzzed and twitched against the bruised sky, its crimson glow flickering like a warning. I killed the engine and sat there, hands gripping the wheel until my knuckles turned white. In the cracked sun visor mirror, I looked like someone who hadn't slept in days. Maybe I hadn't. I reached into my jacket pocket and touched the photograph tucked there, Kara and me on the boardwalk, grinning like we had the world ahead of us. That photo was all I had left of her. The accident had been my fault. I was the one who insisted on driving that night. I was the one who walked away. Kara didn't. Ever since, I'd been drifting, looking for somewhere to bury the weight. When I saw the flyer stapled to a truck stop bulletin board, Nightshift attendant wanted, high pay, Lonely Mesa Gas and Trading Post. It felt like a sign, or maybe a sentence. The store door creaked open under my hand. Inside smelled like old coffee and desolation. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, their sickly hum settling into my bones. Behind the counter stood a man with silver hair and canyon-deep wrinkles. He watched me with eyes the color of dusk. "You Morales?" I nodded. Ava Morales. "Thomas Gray Eyes," he said, extending a hand, calloused like sun-baked wood. "Owner, you sure you want this job?" I managed a shrug. "I need the money." He studied me a beat too long, then nodded toward the counter. "Let's go over the basics." The orientation was quick. Register, pumps, camera feeds, the bulletproof glass booth in the back. I listened, nodded, asked no questions. But I noticed how often his eyes drifted to the windows, to the falling dark. "You lock the door at midnight sharp," he said suddenly. Not 1 second later. I blinked. "Okay." He reached beneath the counter and handed me a yellowing piece of paper, folded and creased. Rules, written in neat, shaky cursive. You read these. You follow them. No exceptions. The list was short but strange. Lock up at midnight sharp. No one enters the store after 12 a.m. Do not open the door for anyone, no matter who or what they appear to be. Voices in the dark lie. If you hear your name or any voice calling from the empty desert, do not answer and do not leave the station. The watcher hates light. If the fluorescent lights flicker 3 times in a row, immediately burn the sage bundle behind the counter and pray until the lights steady. No children here. Should you see any child alone outside after midnight, do not let them in. They are not what they seem. I looked up, half expecting a smirk, but Thomas's face was carved from stone. "You think I'm kidding?" he asked. "No," I lied. "Is this, like, some kind of test?" "It's survival," he said. "Out here, the night has its tricks. Stick to the rules, and it'll leave you be." He turned without another word and walked to the door. I followed him out, watched him drive off into the twilight, the dust of his tires swallowed by the dark. The red coyote buzzed above me. I locked the door. Midnight was coming, and I was alone. I locked the front door at 11:59 p.m., the deadbolt clunking into place with a metallic finality that made my stomach twist. Midnight struck, and the station fell into a silence so heavy it felt rehearsed. I stood behind the counter, fingers brushing the folded rule sheet in my pocket. I told myself it was all superstition, a ritual Thomas used to keep kids in line. The desert pressed against the windows, vast and unmoving. I turned on the radio, an old knob-style job perched on the shelf behind me. Static greeted me before a country song wheezed through. I kept it low, more for company than anything else. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting long shadows across the linoleum. I busied myself, straightening shelves, restocking beef jerky and expired gum. A rack of dusty postcards leaned sideways by the door. The security monitors played their loop. 4 grainy views of the pumps, the parking lot, the desert road, and the back entrance. Nothing moved. Still, I kept checking them, every few minutes, just in case. Around 12:30, headlights rolled up. A dusty rig eased beside pump 2. The driver didn't get out right away. I watched him on the monitor, half hidden in shadow. Finally, he stepped out, a tall man in a ball cap, shoulders hunched. He walked to the service window. I slid behind the booth glass and tapped the intercom. "Need gas?" He nodded once. "Fill her up." I flipped the switch for pump 2. As he fueled, I watched the monitor. Just as he turned back toward the truck, the screen flickered. Static lines danced, then cleared. For a moment, I saw it. His shadow, too long, spidery, like a marionette stretched by invisible strings. I blinked, and it was gone. Just a man climbing into his truck. My breath hitched, probably a glitch, a trick of the light. I didn't believe myself. After he left, the quiet returned. A quiet too clean. I leaned on the counter, eyes stinging. Then the radio cut out, static again. I leaned closer. Buried in the hiss was a sob, high and keening, a woman crying. It vanished as suddenly as it came. The chip rack beside aisle 3 collapsed with a crash. I jumped, heart battering my ribs. I hadn't touched it. No wind had blown through. I checked the monitor. On the desert-facing cam, a blur passed the window. Too quick to see clearly, too real to dismiss. I needed answers. In the office, I rifled through drawers until I found a battered logbook, pages curling, ink smudged. The entries spanned decades. Handwriting changed, but the stories didn't. Voices in the vents again, said my name. Kid outside the door, no whites in his eyes, didn't let him in. Eliza gone, I hear her voice in the well. My throat tightened. I turned the page. A photo slipped out. Faded Polaroid of a girl, maybe 5 or 6, sitting on the station counter. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. I returned to the front. The neon coyote outside was flickering, spasming in red light. I locked eyes with its buzzing glow, then looked past it. Nothing moved in the desert, but something was watching. I could feel it in my bones. I pulled the rule sheet from my pocket and smoothed it flat. No longer just instructions. They were commandments, a line between life and something worse. I was in this now, whatever this was, and something was just getting started. It was nearing 2 a.m. when the knocking began. Soft at first, a gentle rattle, like tiny fists on the glass door. I froze where I stood, halfway through reshelving a row of canned beans. The knock came again, louder this time, persistent. I turned toward the front, and my heart snagged in my chest. A child, alone, standing just beyond the glow of the pump lights. He couldn't have been more than 8, maybe younger, pale face, bowl-cut hair. A red windbreaker zipped up to his chin, the sleeves too long for his arms. He looked like he'd been pulled from another decade entirely. He was shivering. He met my gaze, and I stumbled back a step. His eyes were wrong. No whites, just solid black, depthless. Rule 4 seared into my brain. No children here, do not let them in. They are not what they seem. He placed his small hands on the glass and peered in. His voice was muffled, like someone speaking through water. "I'm cold. Please, I'm lost. Please, let me in." I didn't move. My muscles refused. My instincts screamed to help him, but the fear rooted me to the floor. The boy tugged on the locked door. His breath fogged the glass. "Please, miss, I need help. I was in a car and it crashed. I can't find my mom. It's cold. Please, ... Tears welled in my eyes. I bit down on my knuckle so hard I tasted blood. I shook my head slowly, forcing the words out. I can't. I'm sorry. I can't." His expression shifted in a blink. The sorrow drained from his face, replaced with something ancient. A knowing sneer twisted his lips. "Liar," he whispered. He stepped back and, without a sound, vanished into the dark. Literally vanished. I rushed to the window. The dust near the door held faint footprints. They ended 2 steps out. Nothing beyond them but sand and starlight. My whole body trembled. I gripped the counter for support. On the glass, the boy's handprints still lingered, faint and smeared like oil. I stared at them too long. Had to look away. I almost called Thomas. Almost. But I remembered the signal out here was garbage, and more than that, he had warned me. Rely on the rules. He knew this would happen. I reached under the counter and felt for the sage bundle. It wasn't time to burn it, not yet, but holding it made me feel a little more human, like I had a life raft in this growing sea of madness. The air grew still, not just outside, but inside too. The kind of silence that kills sound before it even happens. And then, floating on that dead air, came a voice. Ava. I spun. The voice came from outside, from the desert. It was soft, familiar. Ava, it's me. I need you. Please come here. Kara. My knees nearly buckled. I took a single step toward the door, breath catching. It was her voice. The same lilt, the same gentle rasp she got when she was tired. My throat closed. I need you, Ava. Please. Another step. Rule 2 screamed in my mind. Voices in the dark lie. I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palms. I closed my eyes and covered my ears. No, I whispered. You're not her. You're not. The voice twisted then, warped into something alien. It shrieked in rage, high and keening. The store windows rattled. A can rolled off the shelf and clattered to the ground. Then, nothing. Silence again. The old radio snapped to life. Static, then a whisper. He didn't tell you everything. Ask him about Eliza. My blood turned to ice. Eliza. The name from the logbook. Eliza gone. I hear her voice in the well. The message ended abruptly, replaced by the dusty drawl of some long-forgotten country ballad. I stared at the radio, heart pounding, and then the lights flickered. Once, twice, 3 times. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed the sage, lit it with trembling hands, and began the chant Thomas had scrawled on the back of the rule sheet. My voice shook, barely audible over the sudden sound of something dragging across the roof. Scrape, scrape, thud. I kept praying, circling the counter, letting the smoke trail behind me. The shadows writhed. Shapes moved just beyond the corners of vision. The scent of rot filled the air. My vision blurred. A final thud near the back. I peeked through the rear window just in time to see a dark, emaciated thing drop from the roof and scuttle into the desert on 2 long limbs. The lights steadied. The silence returned, and I collapsed onto the floor, gasping, the sage still burning in my hand. The sage was almost down to a smoking nub when I finally pulled myself off the cold tile floor. My limbs trembled from more than exhaustion. My fingers were raw from gripping that bundle like it was a lifeline, and maybe it was. For a minute, I just sat, back against the counter, watching the security feeds flicker calmly again, as if nothing had happened. But I knew better. There was a predator out there, and I was the bait. I pulled out my phone, hands still unsteady, and tried Thomas. 3 tries. Voicemail. I moved to the landline near the register, forgotten until now. It hadn't rung all night, but when I picked it up, the line buzzed softly. I dialed again. To my surprise, he answered. A gravelly, "Hello? Thomas, it's Ava. I saw something. A kid." The lights flickered. I burned the sage, just like you said, but something spoke to me. The radio. It mentioned Eliza. There was silence. Then, in a voice quieter than before, "I'm coming. Stay inside. Don't move." The line went dead. I stared at the receiver. He hadn't asked if I was hurt, just said he was coming, and the way his voice shifted at Eliza's name, that wasn't just guilt. That was fear. The radio crackled again, but it wasn't playing music. It rang, not a song, not static, but the ringing of a rotary phone. Except there was no rotary phone in the store. Except there was. Hidden beneath the shelf by the register, half buried in dust and grime, an old rotary dial phone, yellowed and forgotten. I didn't remember seeing it before. I didn't remember it being there. It rang again. I hesitated. The rules didn't say anything about phones. I picked up. At first, only static. Then a voice trembling, distant, watery, like it was speaking from a place far below ground. Ava. I couldn't breathe. It was a young woman's voice. Please listen. You have to know the truth. Who are you? Eliza Gray Eyes. My mouth went dry. He brought you here as an offering. You were chosen. You feel it, don't you? The way it watches you, the way the rules are not protection, they're seasoning. I clutched the receiver, fingers numb. The thing in the desert. We called it Niltsi, the hungry wind. It was bound here by blood. My family made a pact generations ago. It wants fear. It feeds on it. It needs a keeper, and he needs someone to feed it. Thomas? He said you were gone. He sacrificed me. Silence pulsed through the line. He told himself it was to save others, but it was for himself. I wasn't enough. So now it's you. Ask him about the well, Ava. And then the line died. Headlights sliced across the windows. Thomas's pickup skidded into the lot, gravel spitting under the tires. I stepped out of the booth and watched as he emerged, slower than I expected, gun holstered at his hip, and a canvas sack slung over one shoulder. He let himself in with a key, locked the door behind him. Are you hurt? He asked. I didn't answer. Eliza called me. His eyes flashed, then dimmed. She told me about Niltsi, about the pact, about the well. He sighed, heavy, defeated. Then you know. He sat heavily on the stool behind the counter, the sack thumping beside him. You deserve the truth, he said. My grandfather made the deal. A drought, people starving. Niltsi offered power, protection, in exchange for souls. Our family became its stewards, one per year, one offering to keep it sated. Eliza? His eyes welled. I tried to end it. I stopped giving. I thought maybe it would move on, but it took her, my daughter, my child. It punished me, and then I knew I had to start again. He looked at me, not with hatred, but with resignation. You were lost, hurting. I thought maybe it'd be kinder, cleaner. I gave you the rules to keep you just long enough, just afraid enough. It needs you scared. It's close now. He reached into the sack. Rope. I'm sorry, Ava. After you, I'm done. My family's done. I backed away, fast. But he was faster. He grabbed my arm, the rope looping quick around my wrists. Please, I gasped. You don't have to do this. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Outside, the desert trembled. Something had awakened, and it was hungry. The world narrowed to the scrape of rope and the thud of Thomas's boots on hard-packed sand. He'd dragged me behind the station, through a narrow alley of stacked tires and rusting propane tanks. The desert yawned open behind us. I fought every step, wrists bound to the coarse rope, breath sharp in my throat. You don't have to do this, I whispered, my voice barely carrying over the rising wind. He didn't answer. The silence between us felt older than either of us, heavy with generations of blood and dust. I saw where he was taking me before we reached it. An ancient well, its mouth a rusted iron hatch ringed by sun-bleached bones and broken stone. He tied me to a metal loop welded into the side, tethering me like livestock. Then he opened the hatch. The smell hit first. Rot and iron. A deep, earthy wetness, like a wound that had never scabbed over. From within came a faint sighing, as though the pit itself breathed. Behind us, things stirred. In the darkness just beyond the station lights, silhouettes slinked and twitched, long limbs, eyeless faces, limbs moving like insects, mimicking men. I couldn't see them clearly, but I knew. The thralls. What Niltsi made of the devoured, they were waiting. Thomas began to chant. It was a low, rhythmic murmur in a language I didn't know but felt in my bones. each syllable scratched at the inside of my skull. I twisted against the rope, panic flooding me, but the knot was solid. Then the hallucinations began. Or maybe not hallucinations. I didn't know anymore. Kara stepped from the shadows. She was just as I remembered her in the wreck. Blood crusted on her temple, her shirt torn, eyes glassy. She stared at me, tears streaking her cheeks. "Why did you live, Ava?" I couldn't speak. My throat was a knot of grief and terror. "You left me. You promised we'd get out of that town together. You promised." "I didn't know," I choked. "I didn't think the road would—" But she was already fading, her mouth stretching unnaturally wide in a scream that never reached my ears. Then my father appeared. He'd been gone since I was 15. Now he emerged from the dark with empty eyes. "You ran from everything," he said. "Even us. We needed you, and you vanished." Behind him came more ghosts. My old therapist, teachers, the kid I used to babysit, all blaming, all echoing the same chorus. "You ran, you ran, you ran." I squeezed my eyes shut. My wrists bled from the friction of rope against skin. I dug my heels into the dirt. "You're not real," I hissed. "You're not real." The voices shifted, warped into laughter, then shrieking wind. I opened my eyes. The well glowed faintly from below. Two pale lights blinked open in the pit, eyes, impossibly deep and wide, staring up at me. Thomas had finished his chant. The wind howled louder, warm and sharp with sand. Around us, the thralls moaned, spines arching as if in reverence. One of them, the boy from earlier, crawled forward, mouth yawning open to reveal rows of teeth like a shark. He smiled at me with those pitch-black eyes. "I don't want to die," I whispered. And then, through the maelstrom of whispers and sobs, a voice cut through. "Eliza." The station's radio, which Thomas had dropped nearby when he tied me, crackled with static. Then her voice. "Ava." The necklace, around his neck. The token. "Break it." I looked at Thomas. Hanging from a cord around his neck was a small clay amulet, etched with symbols that pulsed faintly in the dark. My heartbeat roared in my ears. That was it. The key. The tether. I shifted, grinding the rope against the rusted metal ring. It bit into my wrists, but the fibers frayed. Thomas stepped to the edge of the well, holding a burning sage bundle laced with something blacker, smokier. A final offering. Niltzi rose. Not fully, not yet. But a clawed hand emerged, made of shadow and ash, dragging itself into our world. It reached for me. The thralls screamed in glee. "No," I said. With a savage pull, the rope snapped. I was free. My wrists burned. My mind buzzed with screams, but I was moving. Thomas turned, surprise flashing in his eyes. I saw fear there, for the first time, and I knew I had one chance to end this. I lunged before Thomas could react, scraping up a jagged shard of glass from a broken bulb, littering the ground near the well. My hands were slick with blood and dirt, but adrenaline cut through the pain. I slashed at him, a desperate, wild arc. The glass caught his forearm, and he recoiled, staggering back with a cry. His grip loosened on the sage bundle. It fell, still smoldering, rolling toward the well. Niltzi's claw crept higher from the pit, charred bone wrapped in gauze-like shadow, trembling with hunger. The wind whipped around us, tearing at my hair, lifting grit into my eyes. I didn't care. I launched forward, driving my knee into Thomas's gut. He grunted and buckled, and then I saw it. The talisman. Clay, etched with swirling, twitching lines. It shimmered faintly, like it was alive, reacting to Niltzi's arrival. "This ends now!" I screamed, yanking the necklace from around his neck. He howled, scrambling after me, but I was already moving. The thralls around the clearing shrieked, their forms convulsing as if sensing the chain's absence. Niltzi let out a thunderous moan that made my ears ring. I hurled the talisman into the well. It disappeared into the dark. Then I scooped up the burning sage bundle. "For Eliza," I whispered, and I threw it after the amulet. The moment the fire touched the depths, the well erupted, not with water, with light. Blue-white fire surged from the pit, spiraling upward like a geyser of holy flame. It blasted Niltzi's half-emerged form, illuminating it in terrible detail, a massive, malformed thing of shifting bones and smoke, faces flickering in its chest like trapped spirits. The wail that followed shattered the night, a chorus of human screams layered over something inhuman. The thralls scattered like roaches. Some evaporated where they stood, unraveling into particles of ash. Others fled into the desert, keening. I was thrown back by the blast, skidding through sand and gravel. My head cracked the base of the mesquite tree. Dazed, I blinked through the glare. Thomas was on his knees at the well's edge, screaming, "You fool! You don't know what you've done." He reached toward the flames, as if to pull the talisman back. Niltzi responded. A second jet of fire burst upward. It enveloped Thomas in one clean flash. His scream cut off instantly. When the flames died, nothing remained of him but a blackened scorch mark and drifting embers. The well buckled, its rusted frame warping inward. Stone cracked and tumbled into the pit as the light slowly dimmed. The sky began to shift, night thinning to the gray of dawn. The darkness that had loomed so thick and unnatural started to fade. Niltzi was gone, banished. I lay there, chest heaving, vision swimming. Around me, the desert exhaled. The final cries of released souls echoed faintly, soft and sorrowful and free. Among them, one voice rose clear and distinct. "Eliza, thank you." A warm breeze drifted past my cheek, gentle as a hand. I closed my eyes and whispered, "You're welcome." Then, everything went quiet. For the first time all night, the silence was just silence, and the night had truly ended. I didn't move for a long time. The stars above blinked in silence, no longer distorted by Niltzi's presence. The air was still thick with smoke and scorched sand, but something had lifted. Some heavy veil I hadn't realized was draped over the entire desert until it vanished. When I finally sat up, pain surged through every limb. My wrists were raw and slick with dried blood. My scalp throbbed where I'd struck the tree, but I was alive. I was alive. The well had collapsed in on itself, stones and rusted metal forming a jagged crown over a smoldering crater. Tendrils of bluish smoke still curled upward, but they looked more like mist now than some infernal breath. I limped over to the edge, keeping a careful distance. There was no sign of Thomas, not his gun, not his rope, not even the scorched remains of his canvas bag, just a patch of blackened earth where Niltzi had claimed its last soul. I stood there, wind curling around my shoulders, and thought of Eliza, and Kara, and the weight I'd carried for both of them. I made my way slowly back toward the station, legs barely obeying me. The neon coyote sign had stopped flickering. In fact, it was dead now, the red tubing dark and inert. The store looked just as it had when I arrived, only older somehow, empty, hollowed out. Inside, I gathered my things, my backpack from behind the counter, my jacket, my photo of Kara, miraculously still tucked in the inside pocket. I picked up the crumpled rule sheet too, its edges burned, corners stained with ash and sweat. I folded it once and slid it into my bag. A keepsake, maybe. A warning. Near the register, something fluttered on the floor. A Polaroid, the same one I saw in the logbook. Eliza on the counter, smiling, but now, in this light, I noticed her eyes. They weren't afraid. They were resigned. Like she knew even then that something dark would come for her. I pocketed the photo. I didn't owe anyone an explanation, but I knew the fire and the lights would draw attention. So I wrote a quick note on an old receipt. Gas leak. Explosion. No casualties. It was lazy, vague, but I figured whoever showed up wouldn't be too eager to poke around the desert long. By the time I limped to my car, the sky had begun to soften. Hints of purple and gold bloomed on the horizon. The wind was cool and dry. The first real breeze I'd felt in hours. I slid into the driver's seat and took one last look at the station. Lonely Mesa Gas and Trading Post stood in silence. The light above the pumps was out. The dust had already begun to reclaim the pavement. It would be swallowed soon, like everything else in the desert. I turned the key. The engine sputtered, then caught. I drove. Mile after mile, the sand turned pink under the dawn. In my rearview mirror, the station disappeared behind a rise. Just another ghost story buried in the dust. I thought I'd feel relief, but what I felt was release. I would carry this night forever, its scars, its warnings, the moment I nearly became something lost and how I fought my way back. Somewhere along the road, I rolled the window down. The breeze tousled my hair, and faintly, just once, I heard her voice, Eliza's voice, soft and grateful, carried by the wind. "Thank you." I smiled. A small, tired thing. "You're welcome," I said, and then I drove into the sunrise, the hungry wind behind me, and whatever came next, wide open and waiting.